Marybeth Niederkorn, Director of the Cape Girardeau County Archives Center in Jackson, Missouri. The Cape Girardeau County Archive is primarily a repository for Cape Girardeau County government documents, which is very helpful for researchers who want more information about their family history or the region's history. We have circuit court records and common pleas court records along with the territorial court records, so those go back into the 1700s. We have marriage records, tax records, census records, all kinds of information that will help people place in history and in this region where their ancestors might have lived and how they might have lived. Well, anyone can make an appointment or drop by pretty well any time during our regular business hours, which is Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, and then Saturday morning, 8:30 to 12:30. And they can just call our main phone number, let us know what they're researching, so that we can kind of pull some information together ahead of time. That's really the ideal way to do it. But we don't place many restrictions on our researchers. We try to provide the resources and kind of help walk them through any questions they might have. And the archives assistant Lyle and I are both very happy to talk through any questions anyone might have. Here's Lyle right now.
Hi. Okay, that's how you get to see me too. Unless you want a tour. Okay, see ya.
How's the library for the Cape Girardeau County Genealogical Society, which gives some more in-depth information, some more secondary sources. We have the primary sources, they have the secondary. So that really helps with context. This is an early example of a tax book from Cape Girardeau County. This one's from 1832. So it is in an archival quality box for preservation purposes. As you can see, it's in a little bit of rough shape. Paper acid content tends to burn and make the paper brittle, and without careful handling and preservation, you can see where it's been fastened and there's a little bit of deterioration of the paper around that because of all that pressure. And where it makes sense to do so, we have made photocopies of the information that's on these pages. But you can really see, oh, that's upside down. But you can really see, here we have the names and the original claimant of the property, or of the patent, excuse me, and the amount they were taxed, and all kinds of information about the money and where it's going. This kind of resource can be very helpful for anyone who wants to know exactly where a piece of property was. We have marriage records housed here at Cape Girardeau County Archives, and those belong to the Office of the Recorder of Deeds, which is across the street in the County Administrative Building. These marriage records go back to 1798. This is a photocopy. I just love how they're just handwritten up until one point in the 1800s. In this folder we have one from the 23rd of January 1800. It's a Xerox copy. So, as you can see here, it talks about who the bride and groom are and where they got married. Sometimes it will include who married them, if it was a justice of the peace marriage, for instance, or if it was performed by a minister. That can give you clues as to which church they might have belonged to or where in the county they might have lived, which can be really helpful if you're trying to pinpoint information, especially this far back. The farther back you go, the fewer documents you're likely to find, because documents were not necessarily required, which meant they weren't necessarily kept. So that is definitely a concern whenever you're looking this far back. So. And we have the marriage records here, the physical copies, up to, I believe, 2019 came over the other week. So, okay, and then we talked about estate papers for Bartholomew Cousin. Bartholomew Cousin was secretary to Don Louis Lorimer, who was the commandant of the region, meaning he was the guy in charge. He founded Cape Girardeau, Lorimer did, and Bartholomew Cousin was right by his side the entire time. Mm-hmm. So, there are 2 files devoted to Cousin. The file is partial. So, now what we do is look it up in our index over here. That gives us the box and folder number, or bundle number, and we can look it up in the back that way. That's how we have them categorized. So we have box 91, bundle 1700, Bartholomew Cousins. I've seen it both ways. So Lyle and I have reconstructed some of this. There was a book and a Southeast Missourian article about the home of Bartholomew Cousin. So that's what we have here. From this book, we were able to find some information, which the researchers at this time, which was I think the 1970s, complained about how there wasn't enough information on Cousin. So we have part of his will here. And wills are really rich in the kind of information that can help place your ancestor and give a little bit more insight into how they lived and what they had. For instance, Cousin, obviously, he was a very wealthy man. He had a lot of personal property and he had a lot of real estate. Cousin had the largest Spanish land grant in Cape Girardeau County, and it was out west of what's now Jackson. So, over on Cane Creek. He held that land, and it was divided up among his heirs. But you'll see a lot of familiar names in here. So we have Joseph McFerrin, who was an early county clerk, and we have Mrs. Daniel Steinbeck, former Agatha Lorimer, one of Louis Lorimer's children, who got married to Daniel Steinbeck. It's just so full of information. I love it. But the other file we have on him is in box 73, bundle 1398. Okay. Some of our files have a little bit of indexing on the front. So here we have the heirs noted and important dates, that kind of information. And you see here some of the onion skin. This is obviously a typed copy that was done later, but this is also a really good example of how the records are only as good as the preservation methods and the people who kept them. It really is amazing to both me and Lyle that the documents have survived as well as they have over the county's history, and having them in this kind of a facility is very helpful toward that goal. So yeah, that's a basic overview of some of what we have here. Okay, so these are our stacks. Over here you'll see the cages. Now these are confidential files that belong to the circuit court. We don't have access to those, so they are, for instance, adoptions, abuse cases, paternity cases, that sort of information that would not be open to the general public. We have copies of divorces and lawsuits here, going back all the way to the early 1800s and up to 2009. Past 2009, divorces and lawsuit copies are kept with Circuit Court. All along the back wall there, we have real estate and personal property tax books, again dating back to the early 1800s. I do want to show you the court books. These are the county court records, the minute books and the indexes. Now, the county court record and the county commission essentially functioned as the same unit for a time. So a lot of this is information on what went through the county commission, what was approved, and what was brought before them, basically. Across the aisle we have wills and probates. We have justice of the peace information. All along here we have the county schools that were closed and consolidated into the 4 school districts that are now in the county. So it varies on what we have for each school. Some we have teacher contracts and student grades, and it's all really, you can get really interesting information out of those. So here we have the recorder, we have marriage licenses, once again, up to present day, all the way back. The territorial court records are right here. And then the rest of this is mostly assessor, treasurer, the archive center, circuit clerk, that kind of information. So we really do have a wide variety of information, all pertaining to Cape Girardeau County.